People struggle to talk about experiencing thoughts of suicide because of the stigma.
It's still a touchy topic.
I'm a suicide survivor myself. I was diagnosed in 2004 with depressive disorder as well as bipolar type 2.
I have general anxiety disorder, ADHD, and depression.
The depression thankfully has kind of gone away, but bipolar is something I'm going to have for life, and I've accepted that.
Statistically, it's more common that if we are to experience or develop a mental illness, it does start in our teen years, right? But does that mean that it's, just genetic? No, right? It is environment, it's genetic, it's just a biopsychosocial combination. So it could be anyone, it could be at any time.
It's important for me to let my bandmates know that, hey guys, I'm not always going to be 100%. I'm a bipolar sufferer. Some days I'm going to be great. Some days I'm going to be not so great. You just got to kind of deal with me.
Breaking down the layers of stigma, it really is adopting this notion that suicide prevention is everyone's business.
It's actually going to open up a dialogue to help challenge that person's negative thought processes and to show that somebody's there to care. I do think that in the past few years that it is more of an open conversation because we know now people are experiencing these types of losses more and more, and they know the conversation needs to happen if they're going to make it stop.
I've also accepted the fact that I'll be on medication for that for life. Which is fine. It keeps me the reasonably well-adjusted person you see in front of you today. Me off my meds is not a good thing. Type 2 tends to be a rapid cycling bipolar as opposed to a prolonged depression or a prolonged manic episode. So for me, I could go in a week up and down 10, 13, 14 times from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. So staying on the medication, again, still have good days, still have bad days. I'm human, but it keeps the peaks and valleys a little bit closer together.
We don't have to have all these amazing skills. We just have to be kind, caring human beings that just are open to having a direct conversation. Because we're talking about life and death. So if we have the conversation, we instantly remove the stigma and the taboo and the judgment just by having that conversation.
I've made it a point in pretty much any new relationship I form to be very upfront and honest, especially when it comes to my employer or my bandmates.
As it relates to workplaces, every workplace should start to make suicide prevention a priority. Within policies, how does an individual return to work? How do we support someone? And I know workplaces are already embarking on those journeys.
From day one of joining this band, it's been absolute support. I couldn't be any happier with the way that went. And our singer Patrick has had some mental health issues of his own that he's dealt with. So to know that I have an ally in the band with him makes things so much easier. For years, I hid behind the stigma and kind of hid it to myself, and in the end realized that that was not the way to be. It's a lot easier to deal with it if you're open and able to discuss it. And by being able to do that, you're also able to maybe help some people down the road. What I've kind of found on top of that is it kind of disproportionately affects men. Men have been brought up kind of generationally to kind of be big and tough and strong and not show any emotion and, kind of suffer in silence. So part of the whole suicide awareness and mental health awareness for me is kind of bringing it forward from a man's perspective. It just seems that over the last few years, we're finally breaking that barrier, but there's still a whole lot of work to do.
Just number one reason why we lose people to suicide is the stigma. I think we've come a long way since the 5 years that I've been really working in advocacy and prevention and trying to lower that stigma. I think our young generation, kudos to them, right? They are letting us know it's okay not to be okay, but I think the bar is still there. I think we still need a lot of work. We constantly hear from individuals that, they don't want to die by suicide. They want the pain to end. And that's really different in the sense that the more we advocate, the more we prevent, right, we're helping those.
Thank you so much for coming out, donating, helping spread awareness, and just knowing that you are being part of the solution and helping people know that it's okay and they should feel empowered to come forward and get the support that they need if they're going through any difficulties in their life. So we are truly honored and privileged to be rocking the Caner Fest stage again.
I think very much in society there's been a stigma attached to mental health for a long time. People looking at physical ailments as being more debilitating when that's absolutely not the case. Mental health can kill just the same.
My friend Jordan Kane, who had passed away by suicide, definitely from the way it happened, there was a lot of closure that wasn't available. Jordan is just an example of the depth of loss we can feel in this tragic kind of way. With suicide particularly, there's often no huge warning signs that it's imminent. You know, he'd always find a way to pull himself out. So there's no way to tell really what is the final low. You know what I mean? So we always just assumed he would pull out like he's done before. Caner Fest started the night of my friend Jordan's funeral. It started as a celebration of life party. My parents would host a Rock the Farm kind of style party every year, and his funeral happened to land on the same day as that party. So I'd asked my folks if they wouldn't mind if, you know, I invited some of his family and his friends out. And this particular type of party, we would have food and live music and things like that. I hadn't really grieved somebody like that before in that actual celebration of life, versus just the funeral and the showing and things like that. And I could definitely tell leaving his funeral that there was something missing in it. That night I met strangers. I feel like I reconnected with old friends, his friends, and it was a whole level of healing that I didn't know was possible. The first few years, they would have a Laval, which was the Tool cover band that Jordan was the bassist in. They would have a revival, and then they would come play for the night. So a lot of the guys send me messages every year thanking me for still doing it. We still get a few of them coming out every year and letting me know that they support the cause and they support me still doing this. I do it for them, really. I mean, I do it for, like I said, the people who have lost more than I can ever imagine. Jordan was a dear friend, but, you know, like, how do I explain it? He was one of my best friends, but that was their brother.
I will always say that being in a band is as close to somebody you can be with somebody and not actually be married and in a family with them.
It was like they lost a family member, and watching how they had to cope with dealing with this loss has motivated me to keep going, to offer this as almost like a service to the community. When I came up with this idea, I had asked Jordan's parents if there was a particular resource that they had an input on where I should put the funds towards, and CMHA came up right away. They had direct involvement to help their son. He came from a very loving family and did utilize resources in the community, but they're still not the easiest to navigate. So that's why we fundraised to open up accessibility.
Very early on, I wanted to put on something for mental health, whether it was tag on to somebody else's cause or to have a show of our own. So when the opportunity to jump on board with Caner Fest came about, it was an absolute no-brainer for us to jump in on that. And it's something that I'm pretty sure we will always play as long as we're asked.
My friend Lily, who left me at a very, very young age from suicide, I do it for her. And yeah, it's just, it's always such a positive event when there's a focus on these kinds of things, because just understanding, loving people in a room together is amazing.
Well, and you don't know who you're necessarily saving through these efforts too, right? Yeah. Making it okay for people to feel like they can come forward and to reach out, making them aware that these resources are available, that's important. you can be saving lives, right? It's those little actions that we can all collectively do that can make a difference. It's a way of breaking down barriers and bringing people together, right? Like when you play a song and everybody in the room is just kind of in that synchronized mode, they're just all loving it and all jamming it. Like, it doesn't matter what their backgrounds are, what their cultural backgrounds are, what their religious beliefs are, what their, whatever preferences they have are. All of that fades away, and you just become one with the music and one together in this collective energy, and that's a really beautiful thing. And that in itself, I mean, especially with the last couple of years with the pandemic, having that loss of togetherness, I know for certain has done a number on people in terms of mental health. We need that. We need to feel that love, that energy, that support from each other. So having an event like this, I think, is remarkable and important in so many ways.
When I think about feeling connected and feeling purpose, as a person who is a big fan of music, maybe not a musician, that was the first thing I thought of, is how fitting it would be, because I express myself so much through my musical interests, that I know that with my friend who passed, he put a lot of himself into his music and his art as a form of expression. When I didn't have coping skills, before I got help myself, and when those things weren't topics to talk about, especially in college, our friends and I would go to whatever bar had the heaviest band and mosh our little hearts out to get out some feelings of aggression and depression and help us get through the night, to make it to another day. It's a feeling of connection with your peers in the community. But yeah, definitely I can say that I spent most of my college years using music as the biggest form of therapy.
I'm a music junkie, so when I'm in one of those depressive states, music is my go-to. I'll close myself off in the office and just for hours listen to music, whether it's in the beginning just to kind of wallow in my self-pity, or after a while to kind of say, okay, it's time to snap out of it and kind of listen to music with a little bit more of a positive message to kind of help me come around. Did a whole lot of that in the past, and a lot of the works that I did write after I was first diagnosed absolutely were therapeutic.
I mean, I used it myself, right? I'm an 80s, 90s kid. Like, some of my favorite songs were from individuals that they themselves were struggling. And it was through the release of music and writing and that artistry that comes through that they were able to release that pain to some extent, right? So do I believe that music has healing properties? Absolutely. Do I believe that, if we could socially prescribe music and really reinvigorate that into, our anchors? Yes. Yes, please, let's do more of it.
I think music can be really, really beautiful and powerful, but I also think that if somebody sincerely needs help, they need to know that there's resources and outlets out there, and to be able to feel empowered to reach out and not to feel ashamed or embarrassed. Mental health and depression and suicide awareness are causes that are all very, very near and dear to my soul. Unfortunately, being a rock musician, there are way too many tragic tales of people doing drug overdoses, taking their own lives, really just struggling with mental illness and mental health issues. We wanted to get involved because these kind of events we think are really, really important to lend our band to and to lend our voice to try and show our support for something that definitely needs more voices behind it.
You know that the ripple effect can have just a big impact, right? And statistically they say that around 7 to 15 individuals can be impacted directly. But I mean, if we think about some individuals, in your lifetime that you've connected, we talked about music, let's think about some individuals that we know that extends beyond 15 people. And so it's important that we do talk about it because we are left grieving.
The worst thing I think you can do is suffer in silence. Like, you have to tell at least one other person. You need somebody that you can trust implicitly and just say, look, I'm not at my best today. I just need you to be here for me, however that is. And for every person, that's going to be individual, right? Like, for me, I might just need somebody to say, yeah, no, you're good. Like, take your day or whatever. Or I might lock myself in my music room and it's me and an acoustic guitar for 4 hours kind of thing, right? It's, for everyone, it's a little bit different. And as long as you're open and honest with yourself about that, then you're going to be okay.
We can all be a helper to anyone that may be struggling. And we just have to be open to what we hear them say, what maybe we are seeing them, right? And maybe there's a change in behavior. Maybe it's just our gut feeling, right? That intuition, because we know this person deeply connected. So we start to sense there's some changes. Maybe an individual starts to withdraw from us. So those are, and words are powerful. If we hear someone say, I've got things figured out, or I don't want to be a burden, or it's a heavy load right now, right? We want to ask, right? And being a helper is just truly leaning in and asking, hey, you want to talk about it? Suicide prevention matters every day, right? We're continuously losing folks, and it's important that we start to get the message across that thoughts of suicide happen, right? 1 in every 20 Canadians right now are experiencing, 5% of our population, I think to varying degrees that's higher, are having thoughts like, I don't want to live right now. But guess what? They're still here. They're still living. So what that means for us is that's hope that we can continue to create that awareness so that we can connect them to those supports.